everybody, welcome back. Okay, so we are going to continue working on the development of our comics. I'm going to go over what we talked about this week. So last week we talked about plot. So to add on to that, we discussed plot twists. A plot twist is when something unexpected happens that could make your story interesting. Just basically something that the audience does not see coming. It could be subtle or something big, very noticeable. Yeah, just something that kind of just shifts the story a bit. There are a lot of stories out there, so the one you make can offer something we haven't yet seen. So we also discussed sketching lightly, using mark-making techniques to make your drawings dynamic and to create darks and lights and shading in interesting ways. We also discussed symbols and superpowers, so I'm going to go over all those right now. Once all your planning is finished and you're ready to start sketching, such as here I'm starting to work on my first page of my comic, I have my layouts designed. So one of the things we talked about in camp this week was to start your drawings lightly. We want to start by just sketching the idea we have. So I'm drawing one of my characters here. They are oysters. So I'm drawing it lightly, and then maybe I'll draw the other one over here. And the reason for this is because I'm just starting to kind of figure out where I want things. And actually, maybe this oyster should be stacked. So because I've sketched it lightly, I can easily erase it and then maybe add it over here very lightly. And then once I am happy with what I'm doing, maybe I'll add some things here. And that seems right. I can come back in a little darker with my pencil and start to finalize the lines I want. Okay, so that's just one way that's helpful, to start with a sketch, and then once you come back into it with more details, more fine lines, then it can start to develop into a more complete drawing. We also discussed mark making. I'm going to show you some examples of how comic artists are using mark making in their drawings. We're going to go over 4 different styles of making marks, okay, to create both texture in our drawings, pattern, and also to create contrast with lights and darks. So that's basically how we can draw shadows and shading in our drawings, okay? Okay, so first we're going to start with hatching. Hatching is basically just using lines. They tend to go in the same direction. So the way we're going to do this is set ourselves up to go from dark over here to light this way. Okay. So in order to make something darker, we need to add more lines. So the more lines you can see, more close together, the darker it gets. As I start to get lighter, I want to add more space in between the lines and have, in general, less lines. Alright, next we're going to do cross-hatching. Cross-hatching is like hatching, except, well, you probably guessed it, you cross the lines. So I'm doing some hatching lines, and then I'm going to start crossing them. Alright, we also talked about stippling. So stippling is a technique to make marks that uses little dots, basically. So I'm using my Sharpie to do this. Just a reminder, we do not have to smash our marker to get this to happen, okay? I will say using a marker or paint makes the stippling process a little bit quicker. Pencil can take some time, but the last one is a really important one, because the last one, well, it doesn't have a name yet. This is the one where you can I just call it an invented mark making technique, okay? There are so many ways to make marks, so I'm just going to make one up. Let's say I have some sort of scaly creature. I could use these marks, okay? So we can be inventive with the types of marks we use in our comic. We also discussed superpowers. Okay, so the question I have for you are, what are some everyday superpowers? Superpowers that we see just in everyday life. Okay, so think about that for a moment. What what out there could be considered a superpower? So the list that we came up with in class included um, the ability to understand other people's emotions, listening to each other, reading, kindness. We talked about even just physical strength, but also mental strength. And so before we do this, I'm going to ask you to do two things. One, think about someone in your life who has a superpower. Okay? They have an everyday superpower, something that's really important and incredible and makes a difference in your life. The second question I have is, what is your unique superpower? Now that you know your superpower, we can design a symbol for it, and then I'm going to show you a technique that we can use in our comic books after that. Once you have your symbol designed, in your kit this week I included some little pieces of styrofoam. And what we're going to do is transfer this drawing onto the styrofoam. I recommend using a slightly dull pencil, not too sharp, because when we do this we don't want to poke through the styrofoam. So I'm going to transfer this over. Essentially what we're doing is basically making a stamp. Once you have finished transferring your drawn symbol over to the styrofoam, what we're using is actually just some markers. Okay, so in order to print this or stamp it, I'm just going to color it in with some markers. Alright everybody, Cal Kitty and I want to say thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time.